The scissors made a sickening crunch as they sheared through Madison Hayes's long auburn hair, thick chunks falling to the classroom floor while 23 students watched in stunned silence. What began as a cruel prank by the school's golden boy quarterback would ignite a chain of events that would destroy reputations, expose a decade-old scandal, and send 3 people to prison. They thought she was just another scholarship kid they could humiliate without consequence. They had no idea Madison Hayes was about to teach them the most expensive lesson of their lives. Madison had always known that Westfield Academy played by a different set of rules. Tucked deep in Connecticut's wealthiest district, the elite private school was a world where last names mattered more than SAT scores, where the parking lot gleamed with Ferraris and Bentleys, and where a single donation could erase any transgression. She'd earned her place purely on merit, a full academic scholarship that covered the $85,000 annual tuition. But it couldn't buy her acceptance among the legacy students groomed for Westfield since birth. At 17, Madison possessed a sharp intellect that made teachers uneasy and classmates resentful. Her essays dissected social inequality with surgical precision. Her debate performances left opponents stammering. Her perfect 4.0 GPA stood as an unshakable monument to merit in a school that usually rewarded connections over competence. That excellence, her refusal to shrink herself for anyone's comfort, had painted a target on her back since day one. The morning of October 15th began like any other. Madison arrived at 7:30 a.m., an hour before most students, to make use of the library, resources her cramped apartment's study nook couldn't offer. She was preparing for the National Merit Scholarship Competition, an achievement that could secure her future beyond Westfield's ivory towers. Her hair, a cascade of carefully maintained waves that fell past her shoulders, was pulled into a simple ponytail. She'd inherited its auburn color from her Irish grandmother, along with a spine of steel and a tongue sharp enough to slice through hypocrisy. By 10:45 a.m., she was seated front row, center in advanced European history, as always, when everything changed. Mr. Davidson was droning about the Treaty of Versailles when she felt the first tug on her ponytail. She ignored it, assuming someone had brushed past her by accident. The second tug was unmistakably deliberate, followed by muffled laughter. From the back of the room, Madison didn't turn. She knew better than to feed their hunger for reaction. Then she heard it, the metallic whisper of scissors opening. Every alarm in her body went off at once. But before she could react, before she could even turn her head, she felt the cold blade close around her hair. The cut was jagged, slow, deliberate, executed with the kind of malicious precision that could only mean premeditation. Chunks of auburn hair floated to the floor like autumn leaves as gasps and nervous giggles rippled through the classroom. Madison's hand flew to the back of her head, fingers finding the ragged edges where her ponytail had been. She turned slowly, mechanically, to face her attacker. Trevor Sinclair stood behind her now empty desk, fabric scissors still in hand, a smug smirk curling his lips. That smirk would cost his family more than they could imagine. Trevor's blue eyes glittered with the kind of cruelty that wealth had always shielded from consequences, the kind of entitlement that assumed immunity. Behind him stood his entourage, Blake Morrison, son of a pharmaceutical tycoon, Emma Cartwright, heir to a global fashion empire, and Derek Chen, whose father managed a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. They formed a semicircle of privilege, their expressions shifting from amused to something darker. Anticipation. They were waiting for Madison to break, to cry, to run. They had choreographed this moment in their group chat the night before. Mr. Davidson, all 6 feet of academic mediocrity crammed into a wrinkled brown suit, finally noticed the disruption. His eyes swept over the scene. Madison's butchered hair, Trevor's scissors, the auburn strands scattered like evidence, and made a calculation that would later feature prominently in a criminal investigation. He cleared his throat, adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses, and resumed his lecture as though nothing had happened. As I was saying, Article 231, commonly referred to as the War Guilt Clause. His words blurred into static as Madison processed what had just happened. Not the haircut. Hair grew back, and she had never defined herself by appearances. It was the choreography of it. The desks subtly shifted for better angles, the phones that appeared seconds before Trevor struck. This wasn't impulsive cruelty. It was staged humiliation, and Mr. Davidson's refusal to intervene confirmed what Madison had long suspected. The rot at Westfield ran all the way to the top. She stood slowly, each movement deliberate. She didn't touch her hair again. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Instead, she walked to Mr. Davidson's desk, her footsteps echoing in the stunned quiet. His hand trembled slightly as he kept his back to her, scribbling on the board with the cowardice of a man who'd spent 20 years enabling the worst of Westfield. "Mr. Davidson," Madison said, her voice calm, the kind of calm that comes before a storm, "I need to report an assault." The chalk snapped in his hand. He turned slowly, his expression already settling into the practiced blankness of plausible deniability. "I'm sure whatever happened was just a misunderstanding, Miss Hayes. Please return to your seat." "Misunderstanding?" Madison repeated, each syllable as precise as a scalpel. "Would you like me to collect the hair from the floor to clarify that misunderstanding, or should I leave it there for the police report I'll be filing?" The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Trevor's smirk twitched, a hairline crack in his armor of arrogance. Emma Cartwright lowered her phone slightly, her recording shifting from entertainment to evidence. Blake Morrison took an involuntary step backward, like a rat sensing the ship might actually sink. Mr. Davidson flushed, his face moving through several shades of red before settling into a deep purple. "Miss Hayes, I think you're overreacting. Boys will be boys. I'm sure Trevor meant no real harm. Perhaps if you hadn't been so provocative in your academic performance, tensions wouldn't have escalated." The words hung in the air like a confession. Gasps broke from several students. Even they recognized the line had been crossed, from passive apathy to active victim-blaming. Madison smiled. Not with anger, not with pain. It was the smile of someone who had just been handed exactly what she needed. "Provocative," she said, slowly savoring it. "My academic performance is provocative. I just want to make sure I understand your position clearly. Mr. Davidson, you are stating, on record, in front of 23 witnesses, that my academic excellence provoked a physical assault, and that the assault is excusable because, quote, boys will be boys. Is that correct?" Mr. Davidson's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping on dry land. He looked to Trevor, a flicker of desperation revealing the true power dynamic. Trevor's father donated 7 figures to the school annually. Madison's mother worked 2 jobs to cover what her scholarship didn't. The math in Mr. Davidson's mind was simple. "What I meant was," he began. "I know exactly what you meant." She turned to the class. Her butchered hair caught the sunlight like a halo of defiance. "Remember this moment," she said. "Remember what you saw. Remember what you heard. Remember who stayed silent and who didn't. Because I promise you, this isn't over." She gathered her books with methodical grace. She would not rush. She would not flee. At the door, she paused and turned to Trevor. He was still holding the scissors. His knuckles were white. His blue eyes no longer sparkled with cruelty, only fear. "Your father's name is Richard Sinclair, correct?" Madison asked conversationally. "CEO of Sinclair Industries. Net worth, approximately $2.3 billion. Westfield's biggest donor. I just want to make sure I have the right Richard Sinclair when this goes public." "You can't," Trevor stammered. "Can't what?" Madison tilted her head slightly, as if studying a specimen. "Can't seek justice? Can't demand accountability? Can't refuse to be silenced by wealth and legacy?" She smiled again. "Watch me." And he's refused. Trevor's smirk faltered. "You can't just—" "Actually," Madison cut in smoothly, "I can." Her phone stayed steady in her hand, the recording light glowing red like a warning flare. "See, your little stunt this morning opened a beautiful door called legal documentation. Every interaction we have from this moment on, every word, every gesture, every pathetic attempt at intimidation, is evidence." Her voice remained calm, almost cheerful, with an edge of something sharper beneath. "So by all means, continue." Refusing to move, "The civil suit my attorney is preparing will appreciate the footage." The room had gone unnaturally still. Mrs. Rodriguez stood frozen near the lab sink, her mouth half open but saying nothing. The rest of the class looked like they'd stopped breathing. "Dude." Blake Morrison tugged at Trevor's sleeve, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe we should just shut up." But Trevor was unraveling. The presence of the camera made him twitchy. The mention of lawyers made his mouth go dry, and Madison, standing there with hacked hair, with nothing to lose and still unshaken, made him terrified in a way he didn't understand. "You have 10 seconds, Madison said pleasantly, tapping her phone screen to emphasize the red recording. Then I call my attorney on speaker so the whole class can hear him define the legal term for harassment. Shall we go over the Missouri statutes together? 9, 8. Trevor stood so abruptly he knocked over a beaker. It exploded on the tile floor, sending glass glittering like shrapnel. He stormed out, sneakers crunching over the shards, his teammates trailing behind, silent, shaken, and suddenly unsure if they were still untouchable. Madison sat back down without ceremony, flipped open her textbook, and resumed reading like the moment hadn't just cracked the school's social order in half. Around her, silence thickened. Something had shifted, palpable and irreversible. The scholarship girl had stood her ground and won. It felt like watching gravity bend in the wrong direction. Mrs. Rodriguez moved to sweep up the broken glass, her hands trembling. As she passed Madison's station, she whispered low, "Be careful. These families don't play fair." Madison didn't look up. "Neither do I." The rest of class played out in strange, stifled normalcy. Students watching Madison with something like awe, or fear, or both. And somewhere in the slick office suites of Westfield's administration, phones were ringing, angry parents demanding answers, damage control spinning up, because a girl who didn't know her place had just forced everyone to remember it. After school, Madison stood at the edge of the parking lot waiting for the public bus, a clear marker of her otherness, one beaten-up bus stop amid a sea of luxury sedans and tinted Escalades. Her phone buzzed non-stop, notifications, messages, shares. The video had gone viral. Her inbox was a battlefield. Floods of support, threats, interview requests from civil rights groups, requests from influencers, requests from strangers, all of them smelling blood in Westfield's crystal-clear waters. She ignored them all. She just wanted to get home. That was when the car pulled up, not the bus. A sleek black Tesla, tinted windows. The passenger side window eased down, behind. It sat a woman Madison recognized instantly. Catherine Morrison, Blake's mother, Westfield board member, one of the queen-makers of the school's dark regime. Polished, rich, and frighteningly still. "Get in," Catherine said. Her voice was low and clipped. It wasn't a request. Madison didn't move. "I'm good with the bus. I'm trying to help you, you stupid girl. Get in before someone sees us talking." Madison's jaw tightened, but something in the woman's voice, the brittle edge, the desperate undercurrent, convinced her. She slid into the Tesla. It smelled like expensive leather and perfume that probably cost more than Madison's rent. Catherine pulled away from the curb like she was escaping something. "You have no idea what you've started," she said, not looking at Madison. "The video, the lawsuit talk, the reporters. You think you're the first to challenge Westfield?" "I think I'm the first with evidence," Madison said coolly. Catherine laughed, a jagged, bitter sound. "You sweet, naive child." Then the story came. The Johnsons, a family destroyed for daring to speak out 5 years ago. Their daughter had been bullied like Madison. They had evidence, testimonies, security footage. Within 6 months, the father was jobless. The mother's business audited into bankruptcy. Their mortgage revoked on a clerical error. College dreams vanished. Reputations smeared. They disappeared. "And that's what happens when you go after Westfield," Catherine said. "They don't fight you. They erase you." Madison's throat tightened. "Then why are you telling me this?" Catherine reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. Small, silver, innocuous, but it might as well have been a live grenade. "Because you have something they didn't," Catherine said. Madison stared. "What is that?" 15 years of Westfield's filth. Every bribe, every lie. Every child they sacrificed to protect the dynasty. I kept it. Insurance. Call it guilt. Call it cowardice. Why give it to me? Catherine's eyes, so cold before, now shimmered, with pain. Because my son is becoming a monster, and I made him that way. Because my daughter tried to kill herself last year rather than go back to that school, we covered it up, sent her to Switzerland. She pressed the flash drive into Madison's hand. Trevor is just the face. Westfield is the disease. If you're going to fight, burn it all down. Madison looked down at the drive. It felt impossibly heavy. This could destroy you too, she said. I'm already destroyed, Catherine replied. But you still have fire. Use it. The Tesla pulled up outside Madison's worn apartment building. The contrast was almost comical. Before Madison stepped out, Catherine said one last thing. They'll come after everything. Your mom's job, your scholarship, your future. But that drive? It could put them in prison. The moment Madison stepped inside, the scent of lavender candles hit her. A futile attempt to hide the old pipes and desperation. Her mother, Sarah Hayes, sat at the kitchen table in her nurse's scrubs, dark circles under her eyes. The news played softly in the background. On screen, Madison's face, her hair, the scissors. Her mother looked up. Baby? One word, wrecked with love and fear. What have you done? Madison sat down across from her. She placed the flash drive on the table like a truth she couldn't unsee. They cut my hair, Mom. In class. While the teacher watched. Sarah reached forward and touched the uneven strands. Her fingers trembled. I saw. But baby, this? Lawyers? Reporters? These people have real money. I know, Madison said. I've done the research. They destroyed the Johnsons, covered up what happened to Ashley Chen, to Catherine's daughter. But they're not going to destroy me. Her voice didn't waver. Her mother stared at the drive like it might detonate. What's on that? Everything. Every crime, every cover-up, every bribe. Sarah's expression changed. Fear gave way to something colder, older. A mother who had cleaned blood off scrubs, who'd worked every holiday so her daughter could have a shot. Show me. For the next 4 hours they went file by file. Embezzled millions. Confidential memos. Audio recordings. Security footage. Bribed therapists. Drugged students. Expulsions disguised as transfers. Children failed on purpose. It was not a scandal. It was a machine. And Madison was going to dismantle it. At 3 a.m., her phone rang. Mrs. Rodriguez. They're calling an emergency board meeting, she whispered. They're going to vote on your expulsion. Madison didn't flinch. Let them try. There's more, the teacher added. Trevor's family hired Burton and Associates. The name hit like ice water. They destroyed the Johnsons. Then it's a good thing, Madison said, eyes narrowing. I'm not playing by their rules. She hung up, turned to her mother. They're going to try to erase me. Sarah Hayes stood slowly, walked to the window, looked out over their crumbling street. When she turned back, her voice was steel. Then we don't back down. We get help. Madison picked up her phone and dialed a number she'd been holding on to for a long time. Alexandra Shen, Ashley Chen's older sister, a civil rights lawyer in New York. The phone rang once, twice. Then a clear voice answered. This is Alexandra, Madison exhaled. This is Madison Hayes from Westfield Academy. I need your help. That's how it began, but not how it would end. Academy. You told me to call if I ever saw the video, Madison said quietly into the phone, her voice steady despite the firestorm inside her. I've been waiting. How bad is it? There was a pause on the other end. Then Alexandra Chen's voice, steel wrapped in velvet. I'll be there by 7 a.m. Don't walk into that meeting without me. Madison's grip tightened on the flash drive. I have 15 years of evidence. Financial crimes, assault cover-ups, systemic discrimination. They're trying to expel me. Tomorrow morning. Then start recording everything, Alexandra instructed. Every conversation, every hallway whisper. From now on, you're not just a student. You're a whistleblower. You're building a federal case. The next morning, the air was crisp with the kind of early autumn chill that should have signaled new beginnings, not war. Madison stood before her bathroom mirror, scissors in hand. Her eyes were unblinking as she finished what Trevor had started. She cut her hair into a sharp, even bob, a symbol of reclamation. They wanted to make her body a battlefield. Fine, she'd walk in like a soldier, not a victim. Downstairs, her mother stood waiting in her best blazer, the one she'd worn years ago to testify about patient neglect. Sarah Hayes had called in, sick for the first time in 5 years. She wasn't just attending as a parent, she was arriving as a witness. When they pulled up to Westfield Academy, the world was already watching. News vans lined the parking lot. Protesters stood at the gates holding signs that screamed the truth. Protect students, not donors. How many more victims? Alexandra Chen waited by the entrance in a slate-gray power suit and heels that sounded like hammers on concrete. She was the antithesis of Westfield's usual passive elegance, a storm cloaked in professionalism. They're going to try to ambush you, she said without preamble. Standard intimidation tactics. Don't speak unless I nod. Record everything. And whatever happens, don't let them see you flinch. The boardroom was a museum of inherited power. Mahogany panels, oil paintings of dead white men, and a table so massive it could have fed Madison's entire apartment building. Seated at its helm were 7 titans of finance and legacy, people who believed wealth exempted them from accountability. Richard Sinclair sat at the head, a silver-haired viper in bespoke armor. The resemblance to Trevor was undeniable. Same. Cold eyes, same carnivorous smile. Ms. Hayes, Dr. Brennan began, voice dripping with weaponized concern. We're here to address your recent behavior and its disruptive impact on our learning environment. Actually, Alexandra interrupted smoothly, we're here to address Westfield Academy's long-standing violation of federal education, laws, Title IX requirements, and a criminal conspiracy to obstruct justice. The room erupted. Objections, legal threats, demands for Alexandra's removal. She stood motionless, letting it wash over her like wind against stone. Then she raised her voice, just enough to slice through the din. My client holds irrefutable evidence of crimes that fall under RICO statutes: money laundering, embezzlement, and tax fraud. All documented, all traceable, all already in the hands of the FBI, IRS, and Department of Education. Richard Sinclair's hand slammed against the table. This is extortion. No, Madison said, rising despite Alexandra's silent warning. Extortion is threatening my mother's job if I don't stay quiet. Extortion is using donations to silence victims. This is justice. She placed her phone on the table and tapped play. Trevor's voice filled the room. Yeah, we're gonna cut that bitch's hair tomorrow. Put her in her place. My dad says scholarship kids need to learn gratitude, not get uppity. Then Blake Morrison. Make sure someone records it. We can edit it. Make it look like she wanted it. And Emma Cartwright. If she complains, just say she's unstable, mental health stuff. Who's gonna believe trailer trash over us? The silence that followed was surgical. Madison looked up. There's more. Another recording. Dr. Brennan's voice now, hushed and clinical. The Johnson family is becoming a problem. They have evidence of the assault. We need to handle this like we did with the Martinez situation. Sinclair's response. I'll make some calls. By next month, they won't be able to afford groceries, let alone lawyers. Alexandra rose slowly. Every person in this room has a choice. Resign and cooperate with federal authorities, or be named as defendants in a case that will annihilate your reputations and strip you of your assets and your freedom. You can't prove anything, one board member hissed. Madison didn't blink. She tapped her tablet, projecting files onto the screen. Bank records, internal emails, security footage, an intricate tapestry of rot. 15 years, she said. 15 years of covered-up assaults, of silenced students, of children sacrificed to protect your donations and perfect PR. How many kids did you drive to suicide? How many families did you destroy? Richard Sinclair stood slowly, rage curdling his face. You think this is over? You have no idea what I'm capable of. You will, said a voice from the doorway. The room turned. An FBI badge gleamed. Agent Martinez, hands where we can see them. Federal agents flooded the room. Arrests were made. Warrants served. Dr. Brennan's face turned ashen as she was cuffed. 3 board members were taken without a word. Jonathan Hartwell tried to run, was tackled in the parking lot, briefcase spilling shredded documents. By noon, Westfield Academy was under federal oversight. By evening, the story had gone national. Scholarship. Student exposes decades of corruption at elite school splashed across every major outlet. Madison's school photo accompanied it. Her old one, hair long and unbroken. Before they tried to make her into a warning, they made her a symbol instead. But the real reckoning came 3 days later. Trevor Sinclair stood before a judge, no longer smirking. His Ivy League future had evaporated. His name, once protected by wealth, now spat out like poison. You are hereby sentenced to 18 months in juvenile detention, followed by 3 years probation and mandatory counseling, the judge declared. You are also barred from enrolling in any federally funded academic institution. Trevor's face crumbled. As he was led away, he looked at Madison. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply nodded and walked out of that courtroom into a future she'd carved for herself. Blade by blade, fact by fact. 6 months later. Madison Hayes stood at a podium in Washington, D.C., her hair long now, professional, powerful. Behind her, a congressional banner. Before her, history in the making. The Hayes Act would require all private schools receiving federal funds to install independent oversight boards and implement transparent reporting systems for all disciplinary actions. They cut my hair, Madison said, voice calm but resolute, because they thought poverty made me powerless. That financial aid came with silence. They were wrong. She looked into the cameras, into every home where former Westfield board members now watched with bitter regret. To every student told, to be grateful for scraps, to be quiet in the face of abuse, record everything, speak up, break the silence, break the system that protects predators. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother, watching from her new role as head nurse at a hospital that valued merit over money. "So proud of you, baby. Dad would be too," Madison smiled. Her hair was no longer a wound. It was armor, a legacy. 2 years later, Harvard's graduation stage. Madison Hayes walked tall, her bachelor's degree in political science in hand. In the crowd, Sarah Hayes wept, no longer wearing blood-stained scrubs, but a designer dress, bought with a salary earned in justice, not in exhaustion. Westfield no longer existed, its assets liquidated. The building now housed a public charter school dedicated to serving underprivileged youth, the very children the old board had tried to erase. Trevor Sinclair had served his full sentence. His father's empire collapsed in a web of indictments. The Sinclair name was now a case study in shame. But it was the quiet transformations that mattered most. Catherine Morrison became an unlikely ally, helping dismantle the conspiracy. Blake apologized, publicly, and now worked with at-risk youth. Even Mr. Davidson, the teacher who'd once stood by in silence, sent Madison a handwritten letter from prison, finally acknowledging his complicity. Madison gave the valedictory address. She looked out at a sea of faces, some of them former victims, now graduates. "They tried to cut us down to size," she said. "Instead, they showed us how sharp we could become." She held her diploma high. To anyone who's ever been told they don't belong, document everything. Fight smart, and never apologize for taking up space. That night, at her celebration dinner, Alexandra Chen raised her glass. To Madison Hayes, who turned a bad haircut into a federal case, and reminded us all, justice isn't about revenge. It's about protection. So no one else has to suffer what you did. Madison touched her hair. Sometimes she still wore it short, like a blade. She had offers from law firms, campaigns, global think tanks, but tomorrow she'd start work at the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, investigating the very institutions that had once tried to destroy her. Her phone buzzed again. A message from a student at an elite school in California. "I saw your story. I need help," Madison smiled and began drafting her reply. They'd cut her hair thinking they were cutting her down. They didn't realize they were creating a warrior. Now she spent her life cutting through lies, silencing corruption, and reminding the world, excellence is not a provocation. Poverty is not a weakness. And silence is no longer the cost of opportunity. The war for Westfield was over. The movement had just begun.